describe how your inner voice had faded. You say, in the decade or so before my marriage fell apart, therapy made it possible for you to respond to betrayals in your marriage without betraying yourself in return.
It is hard, right? Really hard. And it's hard for everyone involved, including the kids. I felt like we had agreed on our values as a couple going into the marriage. But I got to a point where I didn't feel like I could be fully integrated and live those values in the marriage, because there comes a point at which to be true to yourself, you have to do what's right, even though you may not want to.
Melinda French Gates,
So nice
how are
to meet
you?
you.
Can I hug you?
Of course. I've been to Denny's many times.
Have
with
you
my
been to
kids.
Denny's?
Yes, it's been a long time.
Yeah.
But when they were little, they loved Denny's.
Did they really?
Oh yeah, the pancakes.
The pancakes?
Yeah.
Coming up in this incredible Part 2 episode with Melinda French Gates. She's opening up like never before.
You started having dreams of a crumbling foundation.
I had this dream that I was on a cliff and my ex-husband Bill and the kids were also on the edge of the cliff, but my part of the cliff crumbled away and I was dropping down into a pit and they were still on the edge of this cliff together. And I knew, oh, this means I need to separate and do something else. I need to figure this out, and I'm going to be alone in figuring this out.
And sharing life-changing lessons on igniting your courage.
Panic attacks. So many of us have them, and a lot of us think we're alone in them or we don't share them.
I think more people have them than we realize. I had read about them, and I remember being skeptical, like, is that a real thing? Like, what is that? You know, I've been anxious before, but when you have one, it's so terrifying. Just terrifying. At least for me, the whole world falls away and you are just by yourself and just literally that like deer in the headlights. Like you can't, sweaty palms, can't think, your heart is racing. And so I think they're really important to talk about because we can also help one another and coach one another through them. Finally, your body just stops you dead in your tracks and says, this is not right, and you know it.
Yeah. Do you have them now?
Trusting your faith.
There were times I sort of moved away from faith. There's a beautiful, at the end of the musical Les Miserables, they say to love another person is to see the face of God.
How do you reconcile that and practice faith and also be so passionate about some of the things you believe so strongly in that maybe some people in a particular religion don't?
And so talk about an incongruency, right? And I had to really then reckon with my faith. And I just realized, wow, I need to actually unlearn some of these things because I can't square the circle.
Do you know for sure God exists?
Hearing your intuition.
So you have to trust. You have to trust that something's moving through you.
And taking your power back.
I certainly have had times in my life where I didn't think I was worthy. I would sit at the front of the table and think, am I worthy to be here? And worthy to be the one at the head of the table asking the questions, making the decisions about resources. I know there were times where people were rolling their eyes like, okay, that question she asked, that one wasn't a very good one, right? And I had to learn that, no, my voice mattered. And sometimes the question I asked turned out to be exactly the right question.
I am so excited for you, for me, for women everywhere right now, because this conversation is just that incredible. I'm literally jumping out of my chair right now. Melinda French Gates is a philanthropist, businesswoman, and global advocate for women and girls. She's the founder of Pivotal Ventures, focused on accelerating social progress by removing barriers that hold people back. She also co-founded the Gates Foundation alongside her former husband, Bill Gates. Melinda's brand new book, The Next Day, Transitions, Change, and Moving Forward is out now. Make sure you pick up your copy right now. It is so good. And whether today you're listening for yourself or because someone that you love shared this episode with you, I want to welcome you to the Jamie Kern Lima Show podcast family. Thank you so much for being here. And can you take 2 seconds and do me a favor? Please hit the subscribe or follow button on the app that you're listening or watching on. Thank you so much. It truly means so much to me and the team that works so hard to bring you this show. Also, this episode, it's not just for you and me. Please share this with every single person that you know, because what you're about to hear can truly impact and change your life and theirs.
Jamie Kern Lima is her name.
Everybody needs Jamie Kern Lima in their life.
Jamie Kern Lima.
Jamie, you're so inspiring.
Jamie Kern Lima.
One of my favorite parts of the next day was I felt like I was right by your side in some ways, in your childhood, even seeing how you were raised. I used to type on a typewriter, and you talk about the 15-pound typewriter that you were gifted. You talk about your parents. You talk about being raised Catholic, and so I'm curious now today, how would you say the role of faith? What's that role of faith in your life right now? How has it evolved?
It's fundamental in my life still. And I will certainly say there were times I sort of moved away from faith, but then I always, thank goodness, came back to it. Like one of them was in college, right? I actually tried several different faith traditions. I remember calling my mom and she was just like, oh, you're doing what, But then I came back to my roots. I'm less now about a structured religion because I realize that religions all have man-made rules that are part of them, right? Yeah. But they're all pointing to the same thing, which is a belief in spirituality or a goodness in the universe or maybe a God in some cases. And so for me, the spiritual piece is just absolutely grounding in my life. And I go to church some. I'm still Catholic. I go to church some, not nearly as often as when I was growing up. But I'm also maybe even more importantly in these two spiritual groups that are both non-denominational. One I've been with for 20 years, another one's kind of the last 5 years. And we are reading the same things by spiritual teachers over, who taught for centuries sometimes, or somebody who's more current. And then we're sharing ideas about what we're learning through our faith and spirituality. I still go on a silent retreat once a year. In fact, I'll go in May with my group that I've been with for 20 years. We'll go on silent retreat. We met yesterday to prepare for that because it's a journey to go on silent retreat. I would say it's fundamental. And then the other thing I would say, and you alluded to this in your own life, which is, again, when you have doubt and in those times you need to lean in or lean forward, just remembering there's something much bigger than you. And there must be some reason you're here. You have no idea how you got placed in this position, right? I have no idea how the sequence of events that led up to other things in my life. It's hard to put it together. But when you can remember there's something much bigger and you can trust that, at least for me, I know I sink into it and I calm down.
Yeah. Do you know for sure God exists?
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. And there's a beautiful, at the end of the musical Les Miserables, they say to love another person is to see the face of God. And so I've also come to learn that God is also amongst us and in our relations and in our relationships too, and that I can look for that. And you see where you make some of those connections. But what I encourage people to do who've grown up, if you're lucky enough to have grown up in a faith tradition, because I do think that's lucky, it means you had some values and moral structure. It may not have all been right. It may have put some things on you wish you didn't have. But I really encourage people to go back and look at that faith and learn about it. Where did it come from? What are the origins? How did it come into being? Where did it change over time? Like I grew up in the Roman Catholic Church, but there's a Celtic version of the Catholic Church that is actually even closer to what I believe, it turns out. And so just learning your own history so you can decide what you believe now, but practicing your faith is also really important. And so this is why I have these two groups. They're almost like accountability measures we are for one another. And then I also believe in faith in action. So part of the work I do in the world is putting what I believe to be true in my faith and all the things that I've learned through this unusual path I've had in life that, I couldn't have added it all up. I put that faith into action, and hopefully I'm creating positive change in the world.
When you talk about organized religion, for me, like my journey, I'm curious your thoughts on this is, because you're very active with women's rights and politically, all the things. I think some people are scared to even consider faith because they feel they might be judged, or they feel like, oh, well, I believe these things, but then I don't know if I can practice a faith because I've always, as you said, the man-made rules. How do you sort of in your own spirit and soul go, okay, I feel this about my faith, and there might be parts of it, whether they're in writing or not, that doesn't feel true to me. How do you navigate that? Because I think a lot of people don't have faith in their life anymore, or they feel like there's so many rules that maybe feel incongruent with their soul. How do you reconcile that and practice faith and also be so passionate about some of the things you believe so strongly in that maybe some people in a particular religion don't?
Yeah. I love your word incongruent because we know certain things.
Yes.
There's an inner knowing about things. And for me, I'll say, as I was traveling the world more and more, I was so lucky on behalf of the foundation, I got to travel. But, I was out in low-income countries 3, sometimes 4 times a year, all over the world. And I was learning from these men and women in villages about their lives, and they would talk about children. And both the men and the women knew that when they could space the births of those children, they were better off. Or if they could limit, let's say they could limit and decide they were only going to have 3 or 4 instead of 6 or 7, they knew they could then feed their kids could go to school, they had a chance, those kids, of maybe growing up and living their dreams. And so, but I would go in these villages and I would ask people, I literally was in a village, I remember one time, and we all gathered under a tree, there were about 150 people, and I said, how many of you know a woman that has died in childbirth? And the number of hands that went up was astounding. And then I said, how many of you know of a baby that's been lost in childbirth? And even more hands went up. And this was a group where they knew about contraceptives but didn't have access. The world had backed away after the 1970s. We used to make sure that people had access to contraceptives, not for all the right reasons. But the world had backed away. And as I learned the difference, and that child was lost because the mom had them too close together. She didn't mean to, but all of a sudden the next one came and boom, she lost that baby prematurely because the birth was too quick and her body wasn't ready. I started to realize I believe in life. I believe in these children's lives, the worthiness of them, the inherent beauty on the day they're born. But because of a man-made rule in the church that I'm in, the Catholic Church, we're not allowing women to have access to contraceptives. And so talk about an incongruency, right? And I had to really then reckon with my faith. I brought in some Notre Dame scholars to teach me. I learned the history, how the Catholic Church had gotten there, why they'd gotten there. I started to learn from a very liberal Jesuit priest, listening to his lectures and his teachings and his books, Richard Rohr. And I just realized, wow, I need to actually unlearn some of these things because I can't square the circle. I believe in the dignity of life, and yet we're losing more children because of this. We won't allow this tool to be given to women. And it really was almost a crisis of faith, but I was able to eventually reconcile them and say, no, this is what I believe and I know to be true, and I am going to speak the truth in the world. And that took, again, a lot of courage and a lot of leaning forward. But boy, did it feel right to give voice to what these families and these women were telling me. Like if I had the privilege of being there and them sharing their lives with me, I felt, given my position at the foundation, I had a responsibility to go voice that and do something about it on the world stage. And it animated my life.
I love something you just said, that we all have a knowing, like we all have a knowing and know the truth. And, you know, I believe in God. I pray almost every day, all the things. And in my knowing, Melinda, how I feel like how I live my life. And I want to share this because I think something you shared is so powerful. And just for anybody listening or watching us right now, who is maybe in that incongruent place, they're like, well, I kind of feel like to explore faith in my life, but I just can't get over that rule or that judgment or whatever. It's that knowing. It's asking yourself what feels true, like what feels true to me. And everyone can do that. It's free once we get good at it, right? And I remember, I've gotten, pushback on my show for having people that that maybe love differently or vote differently or identify differently. And every time how I feel is when I ask my knowing, my soul, I feel like if Jesus were here right now, he would love you no matter what, no matter how you identify or how you vote or and that's what I believe, that's what I feel is true. So that's how I try to then live my life. And it's just, I want to share that because when you shared that so beautifully, I think that's the powerful thing for people to do. And a lot of people actually haven't considered that. Well, maybe I can approach faith in a way that I take the parts that feel true and feel right and feel like they're true for me, and every person can do that. Okay, I want to talk about lessons in trusting yourself and your inner voice, which I could talk to you for 24 hours about the next day, which is why everyone needs to go pick it up right now. It is so good. And I love what you shared earlier, that in your life, you've been inspired by other people sharing their stories or saying, this is how I got through this, or this is what I did there. And you have friends that have shown up for you that way. In the next day, you describe how your inner voice had faded. And you say, in the decade or so before my marriage fell apart, you write that therapy made it possible for you to respond to betrayals in your marriage without betraying yourself in return.
First of all, the only reason I even include a chapter about that time in my life in the book is because
we need to pause for a super brief break. And while we do, take a moment and share this episode with every single person that you know. Maybe they're going through a transition in their life in some way, who this episode could inspire. Because this conversation can truly not just impact our lives, but theirs too. In life, you don't soar to the level of your hopes and dreams. You stay stuck at the level of your self-worth. When you build your self-worth, you change your entire life. And that's exactly why I wrote my new book, Worthy: How to Believe You Are Enough and Transform Your Life for You. If you have some self-doubt to destroy and a destiny to fulfill, Worthy is for you. In Worthy, you'll learn proven tools and simple steps that bring life-changing results, like how to get unstuck from the things holding you back, build unshakable self-love, unlearn the lies that lead to self-doubt, and embrace the truths that wake up worthiness, overcome limiting beliefs and imposter syndrome, achieve your hopes and dreams by believing you are worthy of them, and so much more. Are you ready to unleash your greatness and step into the person you were born to be? Imagine a life with zero self-doubt and unshakable self-worth. Get your copy of Worthy, plus some amazing thank you bonus gifts for you at worthybook.com or the link in the show notes below. Imagine what you'd do if you fully believed in you. It's time to find out with Worthy. Imagine, what would you do if you fully believed in you? My weekly free inspirational newsletter is packed with tips and tools to help you find out. It's called One-on-One with Jamie, and it's delivered right to your inbox each Tuesday morning. It's a love letter from me to you, from my soul to yours. And I hope it brings you the words and messages you need at just the right moment. Plus, when you're a part of my free inspirational newsletter community, you'll be the first to get behind the scenes content, inspirational messages, and be the first to learn about upcoming events and more. It's the place to be, and I sure hope you'll join me there. So if you're not on the list yet, you can sign up for free at jamiekernlima.com or click the link in the show notes below. And here's to becoming unstoppable together.
And now, more of this incredible conversation together.
You say in the decade or so before my marriage fell apart, you write that therapy made it possible for you to respond to betrayals in your marriage without betraying yourself in return.
First of all, the only reason I even include a chapter about that time in my life in the book is because people know I went through a divorce, and it would be incongruous if I didn't put it in. And it would be disingenuous. Yeah. And as you said, so many people unfortunately go through it, and it is hard, right? Really hard. And it's hard for everyone involved, including the kids, and for sure the kids. So I included it for that reason. Again, to use your word, or to use a different word, I didn't feel like I got to a point in my marriage where I felt like I absolutely knew what my values were. I felt like we had agreed on our values as a couple going into the marriage. But I got to a point where I didn't feel like I could be fully integrated and live those values in the marriage because of some things going on around me that I had previously not been aware of. And there comes a point at which, to be true to yourself, you have to do what's right, even though you may not want to, right? Like, and I talk in the book that I was afraid to call my parents. Like, what are they going to think? I feel terrible. It's not what I dreamt of on the day I got married. But in the end of the day, like, I do think often about, and I have for a long time, I write about in the book, my friend John Nielsen, who died in his 30s. It's got me from a young age in my 30s, because that's how old I was when he passed away too, to think about what do you want the last day to look like and work backwards in your life from there.
Yeah.
And for me, the last day is, was I loved by my family and friends? Did they know I loved them? Do I know that they loved me? Did I do meaningful work in the world? And was I true to myself? Right? I mean, only we're going to answer for ourselves on the last day. Not your children, not your spouse, not your mother, not your father. We are responsible for ourselves. And so if I couldn't be true to myself and be an integrated whole person, then I need to look at that relationship I was in and say, it's not working anymore. I've done my best. I've given everything. I've done a lot of work on it. I've done a lot of forgiveness, but at some point, only I answer for myself.
With transitions that happen in our lives, and especially the ones we weren't planning on, a lot of times we, sometimes our default will go to like, is something wrong with me? Or, maybe someone just lost their job, or the friendship group didn't invite them to the thing, or just like things are changing, right? Over half of us will experience divorce. There's so many transitions. And I love the book where you talk about, how many different transitions you've gone through. I'm going through one right now where my kids are now in school. And so like, that's I'm like, wait, I haven't had a schedule. I haven't had to answer to anyone else. And like just things like that, right? So we all go through these different transitions. And sometimes when they're ones that we didn't foresee, we can feel like, is something wrong with us? Or are we unworthy? Or, did you ever experience that?
I certainly have had times in my life where I didn't think I was worthy. When I transitioned into being a co-founder of the foundation, but then I talk about in the book, all of a sudden it was unbelievable that Warren Buffett was going to take the assets from Berkshire Hathaway and put them into our foundation. Like, what an amazing gift. What an amazing gift. But it catapulted the foundation where we were growing it like this, but all of a sudden the growth in the foundation and the public exposure was exponential. And so to sit then at the head of the table at the foundation where you're having a meeting with 30 people around the table, and they're some of the top scientists in tuberculosis and the top scientist in malaria and the top scientist in maternal mortality. I don't have a background in medicine. I don't have a background in global health. My background is in computer science. And so I would sit at the front of the table and think, am I worthy to be here and worthy to be the one at the head of the table asking the questions, making the decisions about resources? And I had to really grow into that role. And I feel like there were times, I know there were times where people were rolling their eyes like, okay, that question she asked, that one wasn't a very good one, right? And I had to learn that, no, my voice mattered. And sometimes the question I asked turned out to be exactly the right question. And that would give me courage then the next time. I'll give you an example. We were out in Southeast Asia, my ex-husband and I were traveling with a group of scientists. We were going around and learning about tuberculosis in several villages. And we'd done these site visits. They'd lasted more than half the day. We're kind of all about ready to go. But one of the women we talked to earlier was there, but no one was talking to her. And so I just went over and talked to her. The scientists were still talking. And then they kind of started to come in. And then I said to her, everybody's kind of ready to go. And I said to her, well, could you show me? We've talked to you about your experience with tuberculosis in your family and what's happened, but could you show me the actual pill packet? And you could see all the scientists just like kind of rolling their eyes, like, why would you ask that question? Who cares what the pill packet looks like? She brought it out and everybody was shocked, including me, the number of pills in this pill packet. And we started looking at it and realizing that the manufacturer was putting all these placebo pills in the packaging in this particular country. And there really was only one pill in there per day that made a difference, not the other 8 in the packet for that day too. So here's this poor woman and her family. These are hard pills to take. You need food. And it literally got us advocating to the government saying, you've got the wrong manufacturer for this thing. Like, do you know what they're doing with your government money? So even while all the scientists sort of thought it was a not very great question and I felt unworthy, actually in the moment, it turned out to be exactly the right question. So you have to trust.
Trust
You have
yourself.
to trust that something's moving through you.
Yeah. Which I think for so many people, maybe they're at the infancy of that journey, or it'll be, a lifelong journey. But that's beautiful.
And that's why I say to people, you actually have to practice these transitions, right? Like when you're in them, I talk about in the book, don't rush from one thing, if you can help it, to the next. Like, stop and learn the lessons in between, because that's where the beauty happens and the growth and eventually the resilience. And the more you go through one transition, the easier the next one will be, and the next one, and the next one. And you have to trust. There's a parable called the parable of the trapeze, where, a trapeze artist is swinging on a trapeze and they've got both hands, but then they're going to go and get the next bar. Well, as that other bar is coming towards them and they're let going of this one, they have to trust that they've got the timing right to grab the next bar, right? There's a huge piece of trust there as they're flying through the air. And it could be terrifying. It could be exhilarating. But the more they practice that, the more they're going to land that move, and the better off they're going to be at it.
I love that. I love that in the book. That was actually a big takeaway for me, because I will rush through things. And sometimes, when something doesn't go our way, we do not want to feel that for long. You know what I mean? And so we're like, to the next thing. And you talk about that, the power of making sure you create enough space to learn the lesson, or to heal, or to process all of it. In the book, one thing that you share in the next day, which I just have to say this, Melinda, I've written 2 books, and anytime I am on someone's show and they actually read the book and they actually, I'm so grateful. And I just want to say this because it's so important. That the book is out right now, and everyone can go get their copy.
Thank you.
And on both audio, and also I love doing both at the same time, reading the physical copy
Me too.
and listening. I love both because I feel like I'm able to just take everything in. One of the things that you share in the book so vulnerably is about panic attacks. And so many of us have them, and a lot of us think we're alone in them or we don't share them. And you talk about, I think, first in 2006 with the hot air balloon ride, and then I think it was your 20th wedding anniversary.
I think more people have them than we realize. I had read about them, and I remember being skeptical, like, is that a real thing? Like, what is that? You know, I've been anxious before, but when you have one, it is, at least for me, the whole world falls away and you are just by yourself and just literally that like deer in the headlights, like you can't, sweaty palms, can't think, your heart is racing. And so I think they're really important to talk about because we can also help one another and coach one another through them. So one of my youngest daughter, one of her friends had one. We were going to get on a plane situation, and I was able to coach her through it. And it felt good for her and for me at the time. And then I had an adult female friend who had one in the last 6 months and called me. And thank God she called me. Like I could hear it in her voice, and she didn't even quite know what was happening, but I could ask her, what are the circumstances? What was being asked of you? What were you thinking you were going to do? And I could see that the person that was calling her to pull her to do something was doing something for their own interest, not hers. And every single thing in her body was telling her not to do it, but she felt guilt. She felt reasons that she should go. Like that person was quite good at manipulating her, right? And so I was able to talk her down enough that she could calm herself. We could talk later. She didn't end up going and doing the thing the person asked her to do, and thank God she did not.
Do you think that when we have a panic attack, it's our body telling us like something's not right or something's incongruent?
And I think it's been giving you a lot more signals before it gets to the attack, and we just keep not listening to them. We just keep pushing them down and acting like they're not there or not tuning to them. And finally your body just stops you dead in your tracks and says, this is not right, and you know it.
Yeah. Do you have them now? Or when's the last one?
I have not had one recently, not in the last 4 years.
Yeah, I haven't. So I had my first one actually on my honeymoon. And I'm like, what is this trying to tell me? Although what's funny is we wrote the business plan for our company on our honeymoon. So I'm like, maybe I was like about to enter a whole, I don't know what it was, but that was my first time ever. And I couldn't even, I was similar to you where I'd heard of course I knew what they were, but I didn't understand. And then when you have one, oh my gosh, for me, I felt like I was going to die.
Yes.
Like it's so scary.
It's so terrifying.
Yeah.
Just terrifying. And I think that's why we need to not only talk about them and give people tools, but we need to say when it's happened to us. Because I think people look out and say, oh, well, it couldn't have happened to her or him. You know, they're so confident. No, they can happen to anybody. And again, it has to do with, are you living that, you know, are you being in touch with your body and the messages it's giving you? Are you living a fully integrated life?
Well, you talk about too that we can have signs coming from us from all different areas. And page 77 of the next day, page 77. I told you, oh my gosh, I studied every word. It's so good. It's so good. Congratulations. You can probably sense my excitement because when I get excited, it's when I know something's going to really matter and when it's going to impact so many people, but especially women. So page 77 of the next day, you share, you talk about the dreams you started having. You say an article had come out suggesting your ex-husband not only went against the marriage, but also your values. And you started having dreams of a crumbling foundation. Can you share about those dreams? Because a lot of people wonder, are they seeing a sign or is it just a coincidence? Or
for me, not for everybody. Because I know some people that say they don't dream or they dream very little. But for me, I have a very rich dream life and have for a long time and have tried to understand my dreams. Some dreams will take me years to understand, but if they're recurring, I know I need to pay attention to them. Anyway, this dream, as I say in the book, doesn't really take Freud to figure it out, which was, you know, after those articles, things that had come out publicly, I had this dream that I was on a cliff and my ex-husband Bill and the kids were also on the edge of the cliff, but my part of the cliff crumbled away and I was dropping down into a pit and they were still on the edge of this cliff together and they were safe. So I wasn't worried about my children. But I knew when I woke up, oh, this means I need to separate and do something else. I need to figure this out, and I'm going to be alone in figuring this out.
This conversation is so incredible. We made it into more than one part. And if you are ready to hear your intuition and inner voice and learn how to finally trust it, you are not going to want to miss this incredible final part 3 of this conversation with Melinda French Gates, coming up in the next episode of the Jamie Kern Lima Show. Remember, this episode's not just for you and me. Please share this with every single person that you know, because it can impact and change their life too. And if you love today's episode, please click on the follow or subscribe button for the show on the app and give it a 5-star rating or review. And again, please share it with everyone that you believe in. Share it with another person in your life who could benefit from it. Maybe someone you know is making a change in their career or marriage or health. Please post the episode and share it with others online or in your community who just might need the words and tools and lessons in this episode today. You never know whose life you're meant to change today by sharing this episode. And thank you so much for joining me today. Before you go, I want to share some words with you that couldn't be more true. You, right now, exactly as you are enough and fully worthy. You're worthy of your greatest hopes, your wildest dreams, and all the unconditional love in the world. And it is an honor to welcome you to each and every episode of the Jamie Kern Lima Show. Here, I hope you'll come as you are. Heal where you need. Blossom what you choose. Journey toward your calling and stay as long as you'd like, because you belong here. You are worthy. You are loved. You are loved. I love you, and I cannot wait to join you on the next episode of the Jamie Kern Lima Show. Do you struggle with negative self-talk? Living with a constant mental narrative that you're not good enough is exhausting. I know, because I spent most of my life in that habit. The words you say to yourself about yourself are so powerful. And when you learn to take control over your self-talk, it's life-changing. And I wanted to give you a free resource that I created for you if this is something that could benefit your life. It's called 5 Ways to Overcome Negative Self-Talk and Build Self-Love. And it's a free how-to guide to overcome that negative self-talk, to build confidence and develop unshakable self-love so that you can dream big and keep going in the pursuit of your goals. Don't let self-sabotaging thoughts hinder your progress any longer. It's time to rewrite the script of your life, one filled with self-love, resilience, and unwavering belief. If you're ready to take charge of your narrative, build unwavering confidence, and empower yourself to persevere on the path to your dreams, you can grab your free guide to stop overthinking and learn to trust yourself at jamiekernlima.com/resources, or click the link in the show notes below. Who you spend time around is so important, as energy is contagious, and so is self-belief. And I'd love to hang out with you even more, especially if you could use an extra dose of inspiration, which is exactly why I've created my free weekly newsletter that's also a love letter to you, delivered straight to your inbox from me. If you haven't signed up to make sure that you get it each week, just go to jamiekernlima.com to make sure you're on the list, and you'll get your One-on-One with Jamie weekly newsletter and get ready to believe in you. If you're tired of hearing the bad news every single day and need some inspiration, some tips, tools, joy, and love hitting your inbox, I'm your girl. Subscribe at jamiekernlima.com or in the link in the show notes. In life, you don't soar to the level of your hopes and dreams. You stay stuck at the level of your self-worth. When you build your self-worth, you change your entire life. And that's exactly why I wrote my new book, Worthy: How to Believe You Are Enough and Transform Your Life for You. If you have some self-doubt to destroy and a destiny to fulfill, Worthy is for you. In Worthy, you'll learn proven tools and simple steps that bring life-changing results, like how to get unstuck from the things holding you back. Build unshakable self-love. Unlearn the lies that lead to self-doubt and embrace the truths that wake up worthiness. Overcome limiting beliefs and imposter syndrome. Achieve your hopes and dreams by believing you are worthy of them, and so much more. Are you ready to unleash your greatness and step into the person you were born to be? Imagine a life with zero self-doubt and unshakable self-worth. Get your copy of Worthy, plus some amazing thank you bonus gifts for you at worthybook.com or the link in the show notes below. Imagine what you'd do if you fully believed in you. It's time to find out with Worthy. It's such an honor to share this podcast together with you. And please note, I'm not a licensed therapist, and this podcast is not intended as a substitute for the advice of a physician, professional coach, psychotherapist, or other qualified professional. If you love this incredible episode of Melinda French Gates, I promise you're also going to love this life-changing episode of the Jamie Kern Lima Show right here. It's up next just for you.